Welcome to the Manders Mindset podcast. Here you'll find both monologue and interviews of entrepreneurs, coaches, healers, and a variety of other people, where your host Amanda Russo will discuss her own mindset and perspective and her guest mindset and perspective on the world around us. Manders and her guests will help explain to you how shifting your mindset will shift your life.
Welcome to Manders Mindset, where we explore the power of shifting your mindset to shift your life. As always, I'm your host, Amanda Russo, and I'm here today for a solo episode. And today I'm going to talk about how sacrifice comes before success, even in the dictionary. For those of you who follow me on Instagram, you have seen me talk about this a lot recently, about how sacrifice comes before success. Majority of things we want, the successes, goals, desires that we have in our life come at the result of sacrificing something else. Let me explain. Whether it's fitness, professional, personal, whatever you are looking to achieve, you're going to sacrifice something else to get this achievement. And it might not seem like a sacrifice to you, depending on who you are. We all have different goals and desires that we want in life. But I believe all of them come after some sacrifices. You know, I've talked a lot on the podcast about my weight loss and my fitness journey and how I've lost and maintained a 70-pound weight loss. That didn't come without any sacrifices. Whether that was the sacrifices of not going out, not drinking alcohol as much, not being carefree with my eating habits. While it doesn't feel like sacrifices to me anymore because I have changed who I am as a person, there were still things I stopped doing to achieve this success. So I strongly believe every success comes from some sacrifices. It could also be professional goals. If you are starting your own business or looking to go back to school, maybe those sacrifices are less social time with your friends because you are making these sacrifices for the success. Again, just another example. But I encourage you to think about in your life these goals, these successes, these things that you have achieved. What have you sacrificed or given up or gotten rid of, whatever words you want to use, in order to achieve this success? There was something. You gave up something. That leads me to my next point. For those of you who don't know, I went to Bali in May of 2024. An amazing friend of mine, Megan Escobar, gifted me a trip to this goddess retreat because she was unable to go. Now, I had the most amazing time in Bali. I spent about 2 weeks there on this goddess retreat, and I loved it. It really transformed me in a lot of different ways. Now, I did find out about this trip and this opportunity pretty last minute. So a lot of my mindset around this was very fly by the seat of my pants because I only had minimal time to prepare for this. I didn't even research Bali before I went, which sounds insane, but I didn't know that my phone wouldn't work internationally. I thought, oh, I'll bring one debit card because I don't have to worry about losing them. There were a lot of different things that I knew I wanted to approach differently. And that if I had the opportunity, I would love to go back to Bali with a different mindset and a different lens on life. I knew in May when I was in Bali and I was going through all these different lessons that I felt like I needed to go back to Bali. I don't want to say need because I've learned the big difference between needs and wants. But I wanted to go back to Bali to show to myself I could shift my mindset and approach this from the lens that I want to. As I mentioned, sacrifice comes before success. And that happened when I went to Bali in May. I had to make sacrifices in order to be able to go. I had to sacrifice my job. I quit my paralegal job, which I don't regret because I enjoyed being a paralegal, but the company that I was working for, they didn't align with my mindset. They didn't align with my values. And I knew it wasn't the right place for me. So yes, I sacrificed my job for the success of this transformational experience. Was it worth it? 1,000%. I knew that when I came back from Bali, I needed to figure a few things out. I wanted to get back on my feet, start paying off some of my bills, and find a way to go back to Bali and to go back to Bali without flying by the seat of my pants. I had initially hoped to go back to Bali in August for my birthday, but my man Sean had a tough love conversation with me about how what is the point of going to Bali or going to any specific location for a birthday, a celebration, or whatever, just to say you're there, if it wasn't planned accordingly or appropriately, and I didn't do it from the right mindset. I lost some stuff because of improper planning when I went to Bali in May. And Sean really helped me realize certain things, you need to take that step back, take a breath, and reevaluate. And I realized I will go back to Bali. It doesn't have to be for my birthday. I can still have an amazing birthday, even if it's not in Bali. I also knew going back to Bali 3 months after I had just left Bali, I quit my job to go to Bali, wasn't realistic and it wasn't financially feasible. That being said, I didn't go to Bali in August. I started working at a job that I didn't love, honestly, and I knew was temporary. It wasn't something that was forever, but it was intentional to help me get back on my feet and to help me set myself up to be able to go back to Bali. I didn't know when I would be going back to Bali, but I knew in my heart, mind, and soul, I was meant to go back to Bali. I accepted an overnight position at a group home that I worked at years ago because I knew this was a job I could get easily. I could start basically right away. I'd get benefits, and it was easy work for me to start doing. I'll be honest, I had some shame around working overnights at the group home. I didn't even tell anybody about it for a long time because I made up this story inside my head, inside my mind, that I was stepping backwards because I had been this paralegal for so long, and it was years ago that I worked at a group home, and that this was a step back. But it wasn't a step back because it was an intentional step that I made to set my future self up for success. Again, this was a sacrifice. I sacrificed a couple months of not sleeping at night. I sacrificed a couple months of dealing with adolescent behavioral kids to set my future self up for success. Everything in life comes down to some sort of sacrifice. And only you know what you are willing to sacrifice for your success. There are many people who told me they would never work overnights. But me working overnights for about 6 months allowed me the opportunity to now go to Bali for a whole month. Had I not worked these overnights, that might not be possible. I put in sacrifices knowing I didn't love the sacrifices I was making, but feeling that they would be greater in the long run. I worked under the table on and off for an attorney that I know. Again, not because I wanted to, but because in my mind, It was a sacrifice I was making for my greater success. Even small areas of our lives, if there's something you want, it might come from a sacrifice. I'll give you another example. I have not released this episode yet, but I recorded an episode with a guest that I really admire and has been a huge influence in my overall journey and story. And that individual was only able to record a podcast with me on a Friday night. I have never recorded a podcast on a Friday night. It's not because I didn't want to, I just never have. I sacrificed a Friday night for this success. Granted, this was just a personal success for me, but this was something that I wanted. And again, it came down to, am I willing to sacrifice a Friday night to record this podcast episode with this individual who's only available on Friday nights? Only you know what you are willing to sacrifice for your success. That being said, it's okay. Some things in life we're not willing to make the sacrifices for. And maybe you don't want it bad enough, or it's not meant to be in your life. And that's okay. But I hope this episode helps you guys take a moment to take a step back and think about what sacrifices you are willing to make for the successes you are looking to achieve in your life. Because every success comes as the result of some sacrifice. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to another episode of Manders Mindset. As always, if you enjoyed the show, I'd really appreciate it if you left me a rating, left a review, and shared this episode with anyone you think would benefit from hearing it. And as a reminder, Manders Mindset is going on hiatus until March 10th. So stay tuned until then. Thanks, guys. Until next time.
In case no one told you today, I'm proud of you. I'm rooting for you. And you got this. As always, if you enjoyed the show, I would really appreciate it if you would leave me a 5-star rating, leave a review, and share it with anyone you think would benefit from this. And don't forget, you are only one mindset shift away from shifting your life. Thanks, guys. Until next time.